good day. So for today's video, I'll be demonstrating on how to perform a basic cuts among the different knife cuts. Okay, so for today's knife cuts, I'll be demonstrating the few basic cuts, which is the bâtonnet, julienne, fine brunoise, and brunoise. Okay, first things first, a soaked and peeled potato, and I'm gonna do a bâtonnet out of this potato. Alright, so first things first, when we're cutting a round vegetable or fruit, always remember or always provide a base out of that fruit or vegetable. So for example, potato. So as you can see, this is round, right? There's no edges. So the first things first is to cut a small portion just here on the side to create a base. As you can see. So from doing that, you can now have a stable potato or a stable ingredient in your chopping board. So the next thing to do after you created a base on your potato, so let's create edges on the sides as well. So the purpose of this is to have a precise slice of the potato in order for you to proceed on the next step. So once you achieved cutting the edges to make edges on the potato, the next step will be to measure out whether the potato is too thin or too thick. Alright guys, so now that you've achieved on making edges on your round potato, on your round ingredient, so now let us proceed on our first cut, which is the bâtonnet. So the bâtonnet is a type of cut where you see often or usually at a fast food chain such as French fries, for example. So French fries or a bâtonnet has this thickness of a 1/4 or a quarter inch thick and 2 inches long. So for you to have a precise bâtonnet, first you're going to measure your potato by your thumb. Now this is your indication line whether it's 1 inch or not. And now that I've measured my potato, now it's already 1 inch. So in making a bâtonnet has a 1/4 inch and 2 inches long. So now let's proceed on making our bâtonnet. First cut. Second cut. So now after you've created... Alright guys, so now that you've measured your potatoes into a bâtonnet thickness, now let us proceed on making the actual bâtonnet. So it should look like this. Alright guys, so this is what a bâtonnet looks like. A 1/4 inch thick and 2 inches long. Now for our second cut, which is julienne. Now julienne is much thinner than a bâtonnet. So if bâtonnet is a 1/4 inch thick, now in julienne it has a 1/8 inch thick and 2 inches long. So if you wanted to make a julienne out of a bâtonnet, all you have to do is to cut it into half and then cut it into quarters, and then you'll have a julienne. So julienne. So the first thing to do is to make a bâtonnet first out of a single potato. So a julienne has a 1/8 inch thick and 2 inches long. So all I have to do is to cut this into half, and then after you cut a bassinet into half, then again cut it into the other half, cut it into half again. So it's more like a bassinet cut into quarters in order for you to produce a julienne. So that's what a julienne looks like. A bassinet cut into quarters, and then the result is the julienne. So after julienne, now let's proceed on our third cut, which is the fine julienne. Now fine julienne is thinner than a julienne. So if you have a julienne or a potato that is cut into a julienne type of cut, so all you gotta do is to cut it again into quarters in order for you to produce a fine julienne. So now let's proceed on cutting our piece of potato here and turn this into a julienne, a fine julienne rather. So to cut this into half. So from bassinet to julienne, and then from julienne into a fine julienne. Now fine julienne has 1/16 inch thick and has a 2 inch millimeter 2 inch or 6 millimeter long. After you cut a julienne, a finer julienne. Right guys, now this is what a fine julienne looks like. It has a 1/16 inch thick and 2 inches long. After you finish cutting the bassinet, the julienne, and the fine julienne, now let's proceed on our brunoise. Now brunoise is made out of a julienne, but instead of a matchstick size, just like this, all you gotta do is to turn it into dice, or dice it into pieces. So first, let's make a julienne. So from bassinet to julienne, and then from julienne into a brunoise. So all you gotta do is to dice a julienne and turn it into a brunoise. So a brunoise has this 1/8 inch thick, but instead of a matchstick, like I said earlier, you need to dice it in order to come up a brunoise. So there you have it guys, from julienne into a brunoise. And now let's proceed on our fifth cut, which is the fine brunoise. So again guys, from a fine julienne, you can turn that into a fine brunoise. So all you gotta do is to dice up your fine julienne, and eventually it will turn into a nice fine brunoise. So always remember that the fine julienne and a fine brunoise has this 1/16 inch thickness, and if it's a fine julienne, it has a 2 inches long, and if it's a fine brunoise, it has this 1/8 thick inches per side. So there you have it guys, a nice fine brunoise out of a fine julienne. So there you have it guys, 5 basic cuts out of the different knife cuts made out from a single potato. The bâtonnet, julienne, fine julienne, brunoise, and fine brunoise. I hope you learned and enjoy watching my video.